Hi there, today we're going to be talking about passing the CAPM or PMP exam. It's a little bit different from lots of the other videos you've watched. Today we're actually talking about recovering from disappointments on the exam. It's one thing to talk about passing the exam, but there's a lot of pain sometimes because some people don't do well. However, that pain can be turned into gain. Let's talk about how to achieve this. Now, when you come out of the exam hall, first of all, remember it's not the end of the world. Right? It's not the end. What you need to begin to think about is, how can I make this become a win for me? How can I make this actually work to my advantage? Let's talk about some of those things right now. Now, let's talk about steps to take, strategies for making it a win. It's not the end of the world. Secondly, remember that lots of people who attempt this on their second try are actually more successful than they were on their first try. So remember, if you tried again the right way, you can make this a win. It's not the end of the world. It will only work to your advantage if you do the right things. What didn't I do right? You need to ask yourself that. Who's the best judge of yourself? You are. What didn't I do right? Perhaps you didn't study the PMP guide. That's a big one for most people. Maybe you didn't study. What else? Perhaps you didn't do enough quizzes. Now, there was a recent survey and research conducted that showed in order to get the best from any training, you should do some hands-on exercises. Lots of them. So maybe you did the wrong type of questions. Maybe you got all the easy questions. And eventually the exam ended up being very difficult and you're like, I've never seen these questions in my life. Where did they come from? That could be another thing that didn't go down right. Maybe you did the wrong questions. Why not look for the right type of questions? How do you look for the right type of questions? Go to pmpmockexam.com. We've got some questions that will not give you the illusion that you actually know stuff when you don't know it. We've got questions that will actually test you from end to end on your knowledge. Now, not just that, it's not enough to take all these practice tests and questions and go dry for weeks on end. You have to stay in the loop of this thing called the PMP guide. So don't leave it for like weeks on end. You might want to weekly, on a regular basis, make sure you read or study or do something. If you leave gaps in terms of the weeks going without study, it could be very dangerous. So ask yourself, what didn't I do right? Was it the way I studied? Maybe I didn't study everything. Maybe I didn't study the right stuff. Maybe there were areas I wasn't able to catch. Maybe I took it for granted that it would be easy. So begin to think about what you didn't do right. The other big thing is using your PMP or CAPM report. CAPM is broken down by knowledge area, PMP by process group. So if you look at a process group, ask yourself, initiating, there are only 2 processes there. Come on. What didn't I know in Develop Project Charter, and what didn't I know in Identify Stakeholders? How on earth could I get below proficient, or even moderately proficient in that? You could ask yourself, something didn't go down right. Maybe I didn't study that closely enough. I need to go back and study those areas more. When you go to planning, you've got 20 processes. Now you're going to have to go down the list and find out, what did I do right? Maybe I didn't do something right in planning. Because if you look at your report and it says you didn't do well in that, in that, in that, you have to mentally and even physically on page 43 go through all the things that were not very proficient. In other words, below proficient. Even if you got a moderately proficient, if you're taking it the second time, you want to get a proficient on it, don't you? So ask yourself, how can I take this to the next level? You know what you didn't do better than anyone else. Your report will tell you the kind of steps to take to get better in those knowledge areas if you're taking the CAPM, or those process groups if you're taking the PMP. The next point here is using experience to your advantage. You have to use that experience to your advantage. You've been to the test, you know that it's a very, very long 4 hours in that room. You also know you need to take a break. It's a no-brainer. Don't try to take the exam without a break. I did on my one, but ever since I took the PMP, my other certifications, I take a break. Makes sense. Remember the 80-20 rule? You think you're doing yourself good, you might not be. You might want to take a break. Alright? So the whole experience, right, from you getting to the exam to your leaving the exam, they're lessons learned, alright, that you need to put into play. Do things differently. And that's where I talk about the insanity clause. We're not insane. We're not going to keep doing the same thing looking for a different result. We have to do something differently. So we have to leave the approach that didn't work and do something new. Now, maybe you even got some proficiency and you didn't do well. Well, still keep on in that same momentum as you did on those areas. Don't say, oh, I did well in planning the last one, so I'm going to backpedal a little bit. No, you have to keep full throttle down. You have to just keep pressing on in this kind of scenario. Learn from your lessons learned. What I typically advise people to do is look at all the things you learned and make sure you don't do that again. Now, how do you ace the test on the second try? Big word of advice. If you find out that you are not ready to take the exam on a particular day, why don't you just reschedule it? If it's more than 48 hours before the time, just reschedule, because you're doing yourself a lot of harm. If you go for that exam, you might not get a good result. You do want to get a good result, so know how well you're performing. Look in the learning management system. If you're using a learning management system, look at your grades, your scores, talk to your mentor. I'm hoping that after your course, your instructor became your mentor, because that's how it should work. If you don't have a mentor, you don't have anyone to talk to, you don't have anyone to help you out, it's not good. You might want to send a message. You see that button over there? You might want to send a message. Let me know how we can help, because you need a mentor to get on this stuff with you. Alright? I wish you all the best. If you are one of those students who has found yourself having to take this again, when it was never, of course, part of the plan, it never is for anyone, I sincerely wish you the best. Put in that extra bit of work. Have a study timetable. Make up your mind that you are not going to let one day go by without you studying this. Because if you do, it will be back to square one, maybe even to square zero. You don't want that to happen. You want to be all over this stuff. Okay? So full throttle ahead. Get a study plan. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I am going to study 5 knowledge areas. Stick to it. Make it happen. Make it work. If you stick to those 5 days and you stick to doing a quiz at the end, you'll find the gaps. You'll be able to spend the weekend closing out those gaps. Following week, do another 4 knowledge areas and maybe chapters 1, 2, and 3 on another day. But it has to be a deliberate study. It can't be an ad hoc process. Otherwise, we'll be back to square one. So you don't want to have like, okay, maybe today I'm going to read scope, tomorrow, oh, what am I going to read? I don't even know what I'm going to study tomorrow. Don't do that. Okay, so have a study pattern and you will ace the test. All the best.